Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my EMEA Week 2 power rankings. I'm going to be ranking all 11 teams into these 5 tiers going into Week 2. Um, I'll be kind of talking about like what I expect from them next week and like who they're playing and everything like that. I'll be doing this along with weekly pick'ems for every region outside of China. So, I mean, I'm not going to watch that region until like we get to like the international events and stuff. Then I'll watch those teams and everything that are going. But it's just too much to keep up with 4 leagues all at the same time, in an actual like good depth. But yeah, if you want to see those, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Really helps me out. Also, I will be streaming my Pacific VOD reviews today, so you can go check that out with the link in the description. My Twitch is down there. I'll be tweeting out the link. I'll be posting it in my Discord. I don't know if my Discord's in the description. I'll change that if it's not. So yeah, let's get right into it. So we'll start here with the one team in the bad tier, BBL. Kind of staying the same here. Not too much of a shock, honestly. I do think they looked a little bit better than what I thought they would look like. Reezy and Elite looked good, especially on map 2. I thought Elite was very, very good, and Reezy had some good moments on that. Um, Kushner and Brave looked Like Kushner was fine map 2, but Brave, I mean, he got unlucky quite a bit on map 2, I won't lie. It was like I don't know if anybody remembers, but Victor on Fracture against Loud, where he just continuously got spammed through smokes, like just randomly. Uh, just very unlucky from him on that map. But same thing with Brave, like he kept getting killed while somebody's Omen blind. Now he was kind of whiffing as well, so don't get me wrong. Um, but yeah, I don't know, just not great performances from either of those two. And then Pora, I thought played pretty nice individually, like had some nice rounds and everything like that. Um, but they were kind of relying on that to win some rounds, which I don't think is going to be very consistent since he was pretty bad in every other game that I've watched. And also, like outside of a few nice reads on like defense side and stuff, he the calling was bad, like really bad from him, as it's been. So I don't know. Like there were multiple rounds. Like I remember watching them on Bind and Kickoff. There's the clip of FNS watching them just yelling about how they were doing cardio and spawn the whole game, which kind of seemed to translate here for them. So I don't see this team getting out of this tier throughout the year. Maybe some other team drops down below them, but for now, I don't see a world where they get out of this, especially without a roster change. Like maybe they make a roster change and they get better, but for right now, they're not leaving this tier. Then moving on here to these frisky teams that could maybe one week get a nice win over a decent team, but most of the time are not going to look very good and will probably trade wins around the rest of each other, like more like bottom of the table teams in general. And we'll start here with Giants, who honestly, coming out of week 1, I do have a kind of positive vibe about them, as like they were a little bit better than I thought they would look. Um, just because I like the roles here. Like Hoodie overall was pretty good playing the Sentinel. Like the role swap that I wanted them to make, going back to last offseason when I wanted Nookie to go back to the flex and Hoodie to go to the Sentinel. Um, that was something I was calling for this team. And then they finally make the swap of Hoodie to Sentinel, and they actually look good. Fatinho looked pretty good on flex. His util looked good. There were just some moments where he wasn't like winning fights, which you'd like to see him improve on. I I don't know about that. I'm notoriously low on Fatinho, but I don't know. I thought Purpo, for his debut game on Breeze, he looked pretty bad. I won't lie. There were a couple moments where it just looked like he was panicking on the jet. Um, but that kind of felt like a warm up map to me. I thought he was really good on the Rays map too. Cloud always playing good as usual, but the calling is kind of the elephant in the room with this team. It looked very shaky from time to time, where like they just weren't taking timings on the calls, taking too long to get set up. They just don't feel like the structured team that they were last year. They felt so mid all of last year, and that was because they were so solid week to week because of their fundamentals and how structured they were. Now, Redgar coming in here, he is the antithesis of that. I don't know, that's not the right word. I think that means Antithesis. First thing that is direct. Oh no, I was right. Okay. But yeah, he's the antithesis. Bleh. I'm not gonna say that word anymore. He's just his chaotic calling is just the opposite of what they were doing last year. And he just didn't shoot back. So I don't know. Overall, that move still looks like a downgrade to me. Their roles look better. I just don't know how Purpo is going to look in the future. If he continues to look really good like he did on map 2, then maybe I could see a world where this team is pretty good. But it just feels like a week-to-week team on whether they'll show up or not. Then, moving on to Koi here. They had good ideas, I think. I think they're a very similar team to MIBR in Americas, who they're a team with very good ideas and a good coaching staff. I think MIBR's coaching staff is better and they have better players and everything like that. But they just fail at the execution so often. Maybe not so often. That's kind of exaggerating. But they fail at the execution a lot. And just the firepower on this team just is not good enough. Like, Camo, while, yeah, he does his job on the duelist a lot, overall, he just doesn't give enough firepower. Gerbino, while he's a good smokes player and I think he's a good piece to build around in terms of supportive utility, I don't think he's brings enough in terms of firepower either. I think Shados is honestly the opposite of all that, where he's a really good player, but I just don't think he should be playing Sentinel here. And then Starzo, you'd expect more out of him in terms of firepower. Honestly, he's just not giving it here. And then Shadow, like, as I said, this team has a lot of good ideas. I think Shadow is a genuinely good IGL. I'll leave this off on a positive note. It's just, I don't know about the rest of the team, personally. But I think this team is in a better position than they were last offseason, if that is a positive thing. Like, they were in a rough spot, but I think they have two good pieces to build around now, and could continue to grow in the future. Maybe even a third if they want to swap Shados' role. Then we have Liquid, who are not on this page in my notes. There they are. I mean, this team is so weird. They have so many good players. Yampy, Nats. Kiko is even really good. I think Mystic's good. I just don't think Enzo's good enough as an IGL, personally. They couldn't defend for shit on Split. Just like in Kickoff. Like, both times they played it, they couldn't do anything on defense. And especially in their first game, more so, there were so many moments where I was just watching them and I'm going, why are you doing that? What is the plan there? With multiple individual players. Like, there were multiple times where Yampy is just sitting in the middle of vents and mid and just getting spammed for free. Like, you can jiggle it. Like, you can even jiggle it when the smoke is up so you don't get spammed. Like, I don't know why he's standing in the middle of it, especially when he has his pit up. I thought the calling and attack, especially, like, maybe not in Split specifically, I think on Ascent, and what was the other map they played against? Icebox, yeah. I thought that was really sloppy as well. I don't love the calling here from Enzo. He's got a lot of great players. I don't get it. And there's just so many issues with, like, the timings that certain players are taking on lurks and everything like that, especially when it's not Nats. Like when it's Yampy lurking through B main on Split, he's just taking the wrong timing, dying, and losing a man advantage. And it just doesn't make sense to me why he's going for a late lurk there, stuff like that. I know I said Yampy's like a really good player. I still think he is, but there were so many moments where he's just kind of doing something weird. And overall, I feel worse about Liquid, but also, like, the individuals played well. Except for, like, when, like, Nat's playing on Split. Like, I know I said his lurks were good, but, like, he was just so mid. I don't know. There's just so many moving pieces with this team right now. I think if they start to maybe, like, stabilize a little bit with those moving pieces, I think they could look good in the future. I just don't have faith that they're going to do that because they've had the whole, like, off season between, what was the, like, Afrika and then kickoff, where they looked worse in between that, and then to now where they look like the same team. So I don't know, very weird team. I think people would generally agree with that part of it, at least, even if this seems a little low for them. Um, I don't know. I don't see this team doing too much this year, even if they have really good individuals and could be very good. And moving on here to really the team that I don't know what I want to do with here, and that's Gentlemates, who they're not moving up in terms of like actual placement in the power rankings, but the tier that they're in, they are going to be moving up. Like they were about the team that I expected, honestly. They had good fundamentals, sorry. Uh, Sometimes like an individual will get a little bit aggressive in certain moments, but I think that's generally a good thing. You'd rather them be more aggressive than refusing to swing and trade somebody and everything like that, or baiting somebody. And that's generally in like the chaotic moments where like maybe somebody's gonna make a wrong decision. And that'll happen for a lot of teams here. I think they do it like they make bad decisions less than some of these bottom teams. Um, I think that's generally a good thing. Like they'll generally have good setups and like post plants and retakes and everything like that. So I'm not worried about their fundamentals ever, even when they do that kind of stuff. It's just kind of like a small mishap, if anything. Um, like they're far from a perfect team, but when Takas and the tank, one of them drops 25 every map consistently. Um, like it's hard to lose to teams worse than you. Um, like on Ascent, the tank dropped 25. On Sunset, he dropped 20. Takas dropped 24, and Bayeyes popped off as well, who actually had a pretty good game. Surprisingly, I thought he's a pretty mid, like at best, individual while being a actually pretty good caller. Um, I really like the Yoru on Ascent. They did a lot of cool stuff with it. They comboed it with like an Omen Paranoia, so like slash Sova Dart kind of thing, where Takas went into hell, which that was really cool. They did like a Takas Yoru ult out of a main on defense and comboed it with like a Dart and a Sova ult. Um, the tank is always good for one on his Phoenix ult. Like I know these comps aren't good and no other team should run them, but they are good for how Gentlemates play, and I don't know. Like they have Logan to close out rounds if shit goes wrong. I just I don't know, man. Like I have a hard time believing they'll get up here, but they actually look good. So there's potential here. I just don't think the comps are gonna like running double duelists on every map. I don't think you're gonna be one of the top teams in EMEA ever. But I think they'll make good use of their time in tier one, and some of these players will probably get picked up to some tier one teams. And I think that's generally what the point of these tier two teams coming up into tier one will end up being, because I don't know how good of a team you're actually going to be able to build in tier two. And now moving on here to the great teams tier. All right, we're going to start with Vitality, dropping down 3 spots. I think this was the first team that I will actively say that I was wrong about. They got kind of stomped last week versus Navi. Especially on Bind, I think Runner looked pretty bad. Just especially on the defensive side when he just like there were like 3 rounds in a row where he swung showers 3 times and just instantly died every time, which was kind of weird. Bind was such a weird map. Like on both halves, the attacking team would get two kills instantly, or maybe like a couple, like maybe like 20-30 seconds would go by in the round, then they'd actually do a hit, they'd get 2 kills, and then the round would be over and the other team would have to save every time, even when Vitality was on attack. But they kind of choked one of the rounds there, so it was like whatever. um, and overall I just don't think Vitality was as prepared as I thought they were going to be. I thought they would have had more time to scrim with Trex beforehand on kickoff when they thought they were going to be able to play with him, but they weren't. um and that just led to some moments where they were like slightly off in terms of coordination. But overall, I don't hate the roles, which was kind of a concern with a lot of people. And overall, I do still feel very good about this team. I just don't know if they're gonna like. I just need to see it before I predict them to beat top teams. And I think they got a good matchup next week to prove it against Heretics, who, I I mean, look really good as I'll talk about later. But not like I don't think they necessarily need to win that game, but they need to show that they can contend with Heretics at least. Um, that's my main concern, honestly. Then we have Foot. Next up, gotta actually flip to them in my fucking notes, so I actually know what I'm talking about and don't just yap completely. But yeah, I thought Foot looked very, very good. A lot. I wouldn't say a lot better than I thought. I think a lot better than they looked at kickoff, definitely. Just playing more normal roles, normal agents for these people, or for these players, not people. I thought CNED looked pretty good on both roles that he played, on the Chamber and the Jet. Now, personally, I would rather have him play the Jet on Split and play the double duelist, but if they don't think that's very good and would rather just have the Chamber trip and put him on that, I thought he looked very good on the Chamber, honestly. Something that he hasn't really done in the past. So that's a very good sign for them. Even like at kickoff, I don't think he looked that great on the Chamber. Krax's Raze surprisingly looked pretty good. Something that again has not looked great in the past. I don't know why they refuse to put CNUT on Raze. I mean they have on Sunset and everything, but I don't know. That seems weird to me. He also looked very good on KO on Icebox. And then I don't know. Yedije, I thought had some really nice moments. At a captain was not fragging as hard as I maybe expected him to, but you'd expect him to look better in future games. And then Fallen's calling was very good. It was definitely better than it was a kickoff. Not that it was bad then, but I thought the mid rounding from Foot was very good. And yeah, overall, I think they're just playing a lot better into their player strengths. I think they should continue to do that, run less of these weird comps, and they'll be one of these like really good teams in EMEA, and maybe even be able to contend for an international slot. Even though I do have 4 teams in this next tier, which makes this region so much fun. And then now here in the top teams tier, starting at number 4, we have Fnatic. Now, I'm not in full panic mode like everyone else seems to be. I thought they were better than they were in the Karmine Core game at kickoff, personally. That's just how I thought they looked. Maybe not on Icebox, I think. I don't know. It's just the main issue with this team is I think their individual form just looks so off. Chronicle genuinely does not look good. When he was like super consistent player for them, just kind of a rock. Leo is actually making mistakes, which never happened before. And then I think Durka doesn't look good, but I think that's also partially because the setup around him isn't there. Like he still has really like rounds where he looks like Durka. So I'd like to see everyone else get better around him, and I think he will still end up looking good. And I don't know if I'm as concerned about the roster as I am about like their philosophy of the game, because I think Boaster in the game making reads as an IGL was actually pretty good. And on Lotus specifically, they were able to make some good adjustments and everything like that throughout the game. And I mean, Heretics did that back to them, and they ended up losing out in the end. And I think there was a very real world where they win Lotus, but I still think they probably lose out on the last map regardless. These guys need to like play like they're the best team in the world. Like they need to think like it. They don't need to play perfect Valorant all of the time, which is what I think they tried to do. So I don't know. I think I'd like to see them investing more stuff into their eco rounds in terms of ultimates and everything like that, because that's a big thing with this team that they don't do. And I don't know. I want to see a change in like overall game philosophy from this team, and I don't know if that's gonna happen unless they bring in like I don't even know who, like unless they bring in Potter. Like that's the only realistic way. Because I don't think they're dropping Boaster. I don't really think they're making roster changes until the end of the year unless Chronicle is terrible or somebody is genuinely awful. Like I still think Alpha looks good. I don't think he's been playing like the best Sentinel in EMEA, I think that goes to some of these guys on teams ahead of them. Um, and I don't know. Just this isn't the best team in the EMEA anymore. Just straight up. Not much else to say about that. Then moving on to Carmine Corps, who are moving down 2 spots here. But honestly, I feel like that's a little bit disingenuous on how good they looked. I still think they looked like the same team from kickoff and from Madrid. Maybe a little bit worse, kind of changing around like Magnum playing more like initiator stuff so he can stay with the pack, and Thomasy looking really good on the Sentinel stuff actually. Um, that's what I thought. Like on the Cypher, he was farming, especially on Sunset. So that's a good sign that that can continue. Narrate looked really good on the KO on Breeze. Um, and yeah, I mean, their Breeze looking as good as it did is a really good sign for this team. Obviously, they kind of just walked through. Who did they play? I forgot. Yeah, they kind of just walked through Giants. This is my third ranked team going up against my 10th ranked team, so it's not like I think this game was going to be competitive in the first place. But yeah, I mean, the maps that they played looking as good as they did, especially when they're not like their strongest maps being like Split and Lotus, I think is a really good sign for this team, and they could continue to be one of the top teams in the EMEA. Especially when like Martine and Shin aren't farming like they were before. I think that's also a good sign. Then moving on to number 2, where we have Team Heretics. Now, I think a lot of people are going to be clamoring for them to be number 1. And I get that, honestly. I really do. I think in a vacuum, if you just watched week 1, they looked like the no. I actually don't agree with that. Never mind. I don't know. Like, yes, they beat Navi to go to Madrid, which I'll show is my number 1 team. And so therefore, if they beat Navi, they should be better than Navi, which I don't necessarily think that. But I don't know. They looked like the same team from kickoff / Madrid, maybe a little bit better, honestly. I do still have some concerns about roster swaps potentially with Woot coming in. But if they feel confident enough to bring Woot in, I'm not like super concerned about it. I'll probably drop them like maybe a spot from where I think they would be. Just like going into that week when they make the change. So I don't know if it'll be after next week, after week 3. Not exactly sure when, but when that happens, I will make the change. And then I think really the biggest thing for this team looking like they do is the fact that I think Mini Boo is the best duelist in EMEA. And that's a good plug for my EMEA player rankings, which by the time this is uploaded should be posted on my Twitter. So you can go check that out. I'll be updating those weekly as well. And I don't know, this team is just really fun. I like their comps. I like their ideas. Benji Fishy also looks really good. Boo's calling has looked pretty good. I mean, Patatek's fragging hasn't been that great, but like I think his lurking's been really good. His supportive util has been really good. And then Reigns, I also think is just a great player. So I want to see this team with Woot before I say they're gonna be like the best team in EMEA and potentially one of the best teams in the world. But it's absolutely possible. Like I'm more there with the possibility than I was before when I had them ranked 5th, which wasn't necessary. It was just like I hadn't seen it yet, but like them coming out and looking as good as they did here, probably with less practice with Patatek, is definitely a great sign. I'm kind of yapping towards the end of that, so whatever. We're moving on. And then Navi, number 1. I think the main reason that they're over Heretics specifically is just historically, this core is more proven. Like, straight up, you can't argue that. I thought going in, the reason I had them ranked 4th was because I thought they would run some kind of troll-ish comps in the regular season and not really try that much. But I think with it being a limited amount of games, like it not being you have to play every team in one split, I think they said, well, fuck it, we'll just actually play our comps and actually kind of try in every game, and then once we get to a point where we're in playoffs, then we'll start running some experimental stuff. which is what I think they'll do, and I still think they're going to look really good. Um, and it was just more stuff like their FPX comps. Like, obviously, yes, they're running Brim on Lotus, which I still don't like, but it worked, so I don't know. They probably know something I don't. Um, I also still don't love Shao on Smokes, personally. But when Angel's playing the way he did on Bind, specifically, you can't really complain about it. Um, I think the more experience Shao gets on Smokes, the better he'll get. So it'll end up not being an issue eventually, but dude, I just want to see him on Initiator, man. That it's as simple as that. Like, obviously his Sova and like the initiators that are in meta right now weren't his best ones. Like, Fade was easily his best initiator, um, but that's not in meta right now. So I don't know. And when like you have Zip on Sugetsu artists not hitting super hard on the day, I think if those do start hitting, especially during these big tournaments in the big moments, I think it could push them through to potentially be able to win a title. But the reason I have these three as the top, or these four as the top teams instead of international contenders, is because I don't know if right now they can contend with the top of Americas and even the top of Pacific right now. I just need to see those regions play, and maybe I'll change this back. Um, but we'll just have to see. I do think they are the weakest region now. I had the take that the top six in EMEA was the best in the world. Now, I feel like it's the opposite. I think they're worse than Americas, worse than Pacific, everything like that. But I think that's it for my power rankings. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Lots of movement this week with the EMEA. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll be doing EMEA pick'ems before the week starts, so like the day before that. Then I'll be doing Pacific power rankings after the Pacific weekends, Americas after the Americas weekend ends, everything like that. Also, go check out my Twitch. I'll be streaming at some point today. I don't know exactly when. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.